I begged for days. Cried. Got on my knees. But when he finally forgave me for cheating, I realized too late, it wasn't absolution. It was revenge. And by the time I understood his game, we were both already broken. I never imagined myself as the kind of woman who would grovel. I was always the one in control, the one who ended things first, who walked away without looking back. But there I was, knees pressed into the cold hardwood floor of his apartment, fingers clutching at the hem of his jeans like a child begging for mercy. Please, I sobbed, the word tearing from my throat raw and broken. Just talk to me. Just look at me. He didn't. For 3 years, he had loved me with a quiet intensity that felt like coming home. The kind of love that made you believe in soulmates, in forever. Until I shattered it. Until he walked through our bedroom door and saw me tangled in sheets with someone else. This isn't just another story about infidelity. This is about what happens when the person you betray doesn't just walk away, when their pain morphs into something far more dangerous than anger. When forgiveness becomes a weapon. We met during our senior year of college. He was the kind of man who carried silence like a second skin, brooding, observant, the type who spoke only when he had something worth saying. I was all fire and impulse, chasing adrenaline like a drug. Opposites attract, they say, and for a while, it worked. He anchored me, I pulled him out of the shadows. After graduation, we moved in together. A tiny one-bedroom with creaky floors and windows that rattled when the wind blew too hard. It was ours. He talked about the future in quiet, certain terms: marriage, a house, children. I laughed it off, but secretly, I loved the way he said when instead of if. Then, slowly, the restlessness set in. It started as an itch beneath my skin, a voice whispering that maybe this wasn't enough. Maybe I wasn't built for quiet love. Maybe I needed chaos to feel alive. That's how I justified it to myself when I started flirting with the guy from my spin class. Just harmless banter at first, smiling a little too long, lingering after class to chat. Then came the texts. Then the drinks. Then the afternoon I told my boyfriend I was working late, and instead, I was in a hotel room with my hands in another man's hair. I never meant for him to find out. Certainly not like that. I still remember the way the door swung open. The way the air left the room. The way his face went utterly terrifyingly blank when he saw me, naked, gasping, pinned beneath someone else in our bed. He didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. Just turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that made my stomach drop. For 3 days, I called. I texted. I showed up at his best friend's apartment, at his parents' house, anywhere I thought he might be. Radio silence. Then, on the 4th night, my phone lit up with his name. Come over, he said when I answered, his voice flat. We need to talk. I thought it was my chance to fix things. To explain. To beg properly. I didn't realize it was the beginning of the end. Because when I arrived, shaking and red-eyed, he wasn't the man I'd fallen in love with anymore. And what he asked of me wasn't forgiveness. It was surrender. The air in his apartment clung to my skin like a second layer of sweat. I stood frozen in the doorway, my fingers digging into the strap of my purse hard enough to leave crescent-shaped indents in my palms. He didn't greet me. Just motioned toward the couch with a tilt of his head, his expression unreadable in the dim evening light filtering through the blinds. Sit. That single word sent a tremor through me. This wasn't the voice of the man who used to whisper good morning against my bare shoulder. This was something colder. Calculated. I perched on the edge of the couch, my knees pressed together like a chastened child. The coffee table between us held only 3 things: his phone, a glass of water sweating onto the wood, and a plain manila folder that hadn't been there the last time I'd visited. You wanted to explain, he said, leaning back in his chair. So explain. The words tangled in my throat. What could I possibly say? That it meant nothing? That I still loved him? Both were true. Neither would matter. I was stupid, I began, my voice cracking. I got bored, he interrupted, one eyebrow lifting. Lonely? Curious. He reached for the folder, and my breath hitched as he slid it across the table toward me. Try again. Inside were printouts. Dozens of them. Text messages between me and him, time-stamped, highlighted in yellow where the flirting turned explicit. Photos of us leaving the gym together. Screenshots of my Uber receipts showing trips to hotels when I'd claimed to be at work. My stomach lurched. You were watching me? I trusted you, he said calmly. Until I didn't. He tapped a fingernail against a particularly damning photo, me laughing, the spin instructor's hand low on my back outside a bar. Then I made sure. The room tilted. He'd known. For weeks, maybe months, he'd known. And he'd waited. Why didn't you say anything? The question slipped out before I could stop it. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to see how far you'd go. A sob clawed its way up my throat. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry you did it? Or sorry you got caught? He leaned forward suddenly, elbows on his knees. Because here's what I think. I think if I hadn't walked in that day, you'd still be fucking him. I think you liked the lying. The thrill of it. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the truth strangled me. He wasn't wrong. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. When he spoke again, his voice was eerily soft. You want forgiveness? I nodded desperately. Then here's what's going to happen. He picked up his phone, swiped twice, and turned the screen toward me. A recording app blinked red. You're going to tell me everything. Every lie. Every touch. Every time you looked me in the eye afterward and pretended nothing had changed. The air left my lungs. You want me to say it all out loud? I want you to hear yourself, he corrected. I want you to understand what you did. And so I did. 4:47 excruciating minutes, I confessed. The first flirtation. The first kiss. The first time I let the spin instructor push me up against the locked door of a hotel bathroom, his mouth on my neck while my boyfriend texted to ask if I wanted takeout for dinner. I described it all in a shaking monotone, watching his face for any flicker of emotion. There was none. When I finished, hollowed out and trembling, he stopped the recording and pocketed his phone. Now, he said, you're going to tell everyone else. What? Your sister. Your best friend. Your boss. He counted them off on his fingers. Every single person who thinks you're a good person. The blood drained from my face. Why? Because I forgave you, he said simply. But forgiveness has consequences. It wasn't a request. It was a test. And like a fool, I took it. I started with my younger sister that same night, sitting on her couch with my hands shaking around a mug of tea gone cold. Her face crumpled when I spoke. How could you, she whispered, and I had no answer. Next was my best friend, who stared at me for a long silent moment before saying, I always thought he was the cold one. Turns out it was you. The worst was my boss. The spin instructor worked at the same corporate gym where I handled membership accounts. When the HR meeting was called, I knew he'd sent the recording. I sat through it numb, listening to my own voice describe the affair in clinical detail over the conference room speakers. After each confession, I called him. And each time, he answered. Listened. Said nothing. Then the rules changed. Delete your Instagram, he ordered one evening. I did. Quit the gym. I handed in my notice the next morning. Give me your phone passwords. That gave me pause. Why? Because if I'm going to try to trust you again, he said calmly, I need to know you're not still lying. So I handed them over. Every last one. It felt like surrender. Like penance. Like I was willingly stepping into a cage, locking the door behind me, and handing him the key. And the terrifying part? Part of me wanted it. Because as long as he was controlling me, he was still choosing me. Until the night he proved just how wrong I was. The texts started arriving at 2:37 a.m. You were at the coffee shop for 22 minutes today. Who were you talking to? I stared at the glowing screen, my pulse throbbing in my throat. It had been 3 months since the night I handed over my passwords. 3 months of jumping at every notification, of sending hourly check-ins, of living in a constant state of apology. I typed back immediately, my fingers trembling. Just the barista. Ordered a latte. That's all. The reply came instantly. You smiled at him. A chill crawled down my spine. He wasn't just tracking my location, he was having me watched. I should have run then. Should have changed my number, moved cities, disappeared. But the sickest part? I stayed because part of me believed I deserved this. That his obsession was just love in its ugliest, most honest form. Then came the night of the thunderstorm. Rain lashed against my apartment windows when the buzzer rang at midnight. His voice through the intercom was calm. Let me up. When I opened the door, he looked different. Hollow-eyed, his shirt rumpled like he hadn't slept in days. The scent of whiskey clung to him. We need to talk, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. My hands began to shake. There was something in his tone I hadn't heard before, something final. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and held it up between 2 fingers. Do you know what's on this? I shook my head, my mouth suddenly dry. Every photo. Every text. Every lie. He turned it over in his hands. Enough to ruin you. The air left my lungs. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm done. His voice was eerily calm. You broke us. Now I'm going to break you. He moved to my laptop on the kitchen counter and inserted the drive before I could react. The screen flickered to life, displaying a folder labeled her. Open it, he commanded. Inside were hundreds of files, not just evidence of my affair, but everything. Private photos I'd sent him during our relationship. Screenshots of old arguments. Even recordings of our therapy sessions. All meticulously organized. My vision blurred. You've been compiling this? Since the day I forgave you. He smiled then, a terrible empty smile. Funny thing about forgiveness, it leaves the door wide open. He clicked a file, and suddenly my voice filled the room, the recording he'd made months ago, my tearful confession spilling out in excruciating detail. This goes public tomorrow, he said. Unless you do exactly what I say. The room spun. What do you want? First, you call your parents. Right now. Tell them everything. I reached for my phone with numb fingers. My mother's sleepy hello cracked something inside me. Mom, my voice broke. His eyes never left mine as I destroyed myself all over again. When I hung up, he nodded approvingly. Now your job. Please, I whispered. I'll do anything else. Anything. He stepped closer, so near I could smell the whiskey on his breath. Then get on your knees. For one horrifying moment, I thought he meant. But then he gestured to the laptop. Delete your entire professional email account. Every contact. Every file. My hands shook as I typed in the password. 5 years of work. Gone with a click. Good girl, he murmured, stroking my hair like I was a dog. Now stand up. He pulled me to my feet, his grip bruising. For the first time in months, he looked directly into my eyes. This is your last chance to fix what you broke, he said softly. Are you ready? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Then say it. Say what? That you love me. The words caught in my throat. Because in that moment, staring into the eyes of the man who had become my jailer, I realized with sickening clarity. I didn't. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. Something in my face must have given me away. His expression darkened. I see, he said quietly. Then he pulled the flash drive from my laptop and dropped it into my palm. Keep it. A souvenir. He walked out without looking back. The next morning, I braced for the fallout, for my voice to echo across the internet, for my life to implode. But nothing happened. No leaked files. No vengeful posts. Just silence. For weeks, I jumped at every notification. Then months. Eventually, I changed my number. Moved apartments. Started therapy. The flash drive sits in my desk drawer, still unopened. Sometimes, in my darkest moments, I'm tempted to plug it in, to see if there's anything left of the man I once loved buried in those files. But I never do. Because the truth is, we both lost that day. He lost his chance to punish me. And I lost the ability to ever trust myself again. A year later, I saw him at a coffee shop. He looked healthier. Happier. Arms slung around a pretty brunette who laughed at something he said. Our eyes met across the room. For one heartbeat, I saw the ghost of the man I'd loved. Then he turned away. As I walked out into the sunlight, I realized something awful. I was jealous. Not of her, but of him. Because he got to walk away. And I'll always be trapped in what we did to each other.